Hello and welcome to the Dressage Anywhere podcast. So hello everybody, I am delighted to be joined by Jane Brindley, who is otherwise known as Horse Riding with Confidence Scotland. Now, so I don't get it wrong, Jane, you are a horse riding confidence and mindset coach, aren't you?
I am. Yes, that is, you've got it right. Well done. Well done. And yes, so I work with riders at all levels, from literally people who are frightened to get on their horse and up through to people who are competing at a high level. But the majority of the riders I work with are leisure riders and serious amateurs who are just enjoying getting out and about competing. So that's probably the biggest section of riders that I work with. And yes, so I work with them using hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, a little bit of NLP and performance coaching, and help them with any mindset and confidence issues that they might have, and try my best to help them to get back to enjoying their riding, which is ultimately what it's all about, is
Absolutely.
to have fun.
Yeah. Now, we've known each other for quite a while, haven't we?
Yes.
I think it's through Ria Freeman's Small and Supercharged group, and now we're both in the mastermind group as well. So
absolutely, yes, yeah.
So I've seen some of the great work that you've been doing, but I had a need to call on you for some help, and I thought that talking through some of that would be really great for this episode, because I am sure there are lots of people out there who have similar little niggles to what I did, really. So for the purposes of this podcast, full disclosure, I did have a confidence related problem with riding my horse. I've mentioned it a few times on Instagram stories, but I've never gone into loads of detail about it. But basically, I haven't left, or well, I have now, but I hadn't left my yard to go hacking for quite some time. So I'm not sure exactly how long it was for, but we're talking years. So poor Jeffrey, my horse, had been restricted to riding in the arena at home. And it was only when a saddle problem came to light that I realised we were going to have to go out hacking and stop doing so much schooling. And then I realised what a problem this had really become in my head. So this is where Jane came in. Jane, is this kind of Penelope Pitstop help approach kind of normal?
It is so common. Firstly, I'd just like to say, thank you for being prepared to go public with your experience, because not everybody is comfortable doing that. And obviously, as a therapist, a professional, I will always respect that. And confidentiality is of the utmost importance for my clients, so that they can trust that they can tell their story safely and it's not going to go any further. However, many people I work with are comfortable with sharing their story. And of course, that helps me because, if I do a good job, it helps me in that they are happy to share their experiences, and, which will hopefully encourage other people to seek help. But yes, so your experience is probably fairly typical of somebody who has got a riding issue that is preventing them from fulfilling their potential, or preventing them from really enjoying what they do. And they're holding themselves back for often an unknown reason, unknown to them. It might be quite deeply buried in their unconscious about why they have a fear about doing whatever, whether that's, perhaps jumping over a certain height, or in your case, going out for a hack. So they find themselves very much restricted into an ever shrinking comfort zone, which might be riding a familiar horse quietly in an arena with that, barriers round you, so you can't really go very far, which is all good and well. There's, as long as your horse is comfortable doing that, there's no reason why you shouldn't ride in an arena. And I've certainly worked with riders who I have helped to come to their own satisfied understanding that it's okay to stay within the arena. And ultimately, the only thing that you must do for your horse is look after its welfare.
Yeah.
And make sure it's, fed, watered, sheltered, and it's got company. And riding is a choice. So a rider does not have to canter, doesn't have to jump, doesn't have to compete, doesn't have to hack out, as long as their horse's basic needs are looked after. But hacking can be such a pleasure, and it's such a fun thing you can do. It's an easy way to get exercise for your horse. It's a nice way to see the countryside. Can be a nice social thing if you're hacking out with another rider, or it can be a really special one-to-one time, horse and rider together as one. And if I can help a rider to feel comfortable going out on their own with their horse and enjoying the countryside, then whoopee, that's amazing. And it's such a lovely thing to be able to do as a rider.
Yeah. Oh God, absolutely. I mean, we used to hack many years ago when I moved to this yard, but just the bad weather and winter and everything just stopped me from doing it. And then those issues and those demons just crept in. And somebody would say, "Would you like to go for a hack?" And I'm, "Oh, maybe next week." And then the week later, "Oh, maybe next week." And I just stopped doing it, and my confidence just kind of nosedived. I know that you completely understood the issue in my head when we first met. Obviously, Jane, horse riding in Scotland. Jane is based in Scotland and I'm based in Hampshire. So we did several sessions over Zoom, which was amazing. And I know you really understood where I was coming from, and I felt very reassured by that. But how do you start to unravel a problem like that?
Yeah, really well, first of all, let me say, yes, you're very kind to say that you felt that I understood where you were coming from. And really, that's from my own personal experience. I was that rider, very similar to you, who would perhaps be tacking up at home, thinking I would go for a hack. And then I would see or hear something out on the road and think, oh gosh, no, better not go out there. And so I would end up plodding around the field for half an hour and then thinking, why did I do that? But I started to apply what I had learned in my the courses that I'd done to my own riding. Not necessarily actually consciously, it just sort of filtered into me, all this stuff that I was learning, and then deliberately applying, once I kind of realized what was going on, deliberately applying what I'd learned to myself. And very quickly, I found that I was able to stretch out of my comfort zone and go a little bit further than I had thought, and be prepared to, contact friends to say, let's do this together, and to be prepared to ask for help, to say, look, I need some company with this. I need a little bit of support with this. And I honestly did get to the stage where I would be really happy hacking on my own, and almost sort of sometimes think, I don't really mind if she spooks because I'm sure I'll handle it. And so that was really liberating. And yes, so where would I start with somebody who came to me with an issue? Firstly, by saying, I think, recognizing what that person is doing, which is avoiding the issue. In that vain hope that it might go away if you don't think about it, and finding excuses. So I very much listen to the language that the person uses when they're telling me their story. Often people might be saying, well, I can't hack out if the weather's bad, or if he hasn't been turned out for a couple of days, definitely won't hack out then. And if I haven't got time, and maybe I'm not quite sure about his saddle. So I won't hack out till I get my saddle sorted. And basically that person is finding excuses not to do it. And on some level, they're hoping that the problem will magically solve itself by avoiding it. But in fact, what does that do? What does that do? It doesn't make the problem go away, and probably increases the problem, allows it to grow, and it becomes more and more of an issue.
Yeah.
So I'm very much of the approach that, we start with where we are now on that day when you contact me, when somebody contacts me. And yes, I'm very interested in their riding history, but they are where they are now.
Yeah.
So my role is to help them move forward from where they are now. So, often people might say, well, I used to be able to do this, or I did this on my previous horse, or why can't I do it anymore? We'll come to that, but let's look at actually identifying where you are now and what exactly is going on at this moment, so that we can start to identify where the rider's strengths might lie and where the particular challenges are. Mm-hmm. And that will then allow us to build on those strengths and use those strengths to help them to overcome the challenge, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I certainly don't have a magic wand, sadly.
I like it.
Though maybe we had a bit of a magic wand for you.
Yeah, I think you definitely did.
Nice result. But no, so I always feel, that the people that I work with, we're very much in partnership. We work together, and I see the riders who come to me very much as an individual rather than as, fitting into a formula that I have used, 100 times before. Mm-hmm. Let's look at your individual story, your individual experience, your individual horse that you're trying to do X, Y, and Z with, and work out what's going on and how you can move forward from there.
Yeah. Do you remember it? I think it was in the very first session I had with you. We were talking about the issue, and you asked me to describe to you what was going on and what it was like, what was happening. And it became very clear that it was my self-talk that was really affecting the way that I was looking at it, because Jeffrey, my horse, Jeffrey, is a 14-2 and 21-year-old Welsh chestnut gelding. He's not like some great big 18-hand stallion or something. And yes, he's a Welsh pony, so that there's a few challenges there. He can be a bit anxious about things. But when I was describing him to you, I remember saying, well, he's a complete nutter. He's a complete nutter when we go out and this happens. And you very calmly said to me, is he a complete nutter? And can you actually ride, Ruth? And when I took a step back and thought about it, I said, no, he's not a complete nutter. And yes, I can ride. I've been riding him for 15 years. And it was at that moment I thought, hang on a minute. But
this is coming from inside your mind rather than from a real lack of experience or skill as a rider. And that poor Jeffrey had been labelled. And I'm very aware always of the risk that people take when they attach labels to themselves or to their horses. So this might be a little bit controversial, but I think it's important, is, there are so many people out there who label themselves as the nervous rider or the scaredy cat eventer or the this or the that or the useless dressage rider or the rubbish horse owner or whatever. These labels are so important, but they're so unhelpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, time and time again, people are talking about their horses as, he's a nutter, he's crazy, he always does this, he always does that. And my job here is to identify that and say, wait a minute, is there another way we can look at this? Always wanting to know from the riders that I work with, a very important question, which is, do you have the skills and experience necessary to ride this horse? Because as I'm sure you can imagine, many times over the years, people have come to me saying, you know, I used to have a lovely horse and then I decided to get a new one. And I saw him and he was absolutely beautiful, but he was dead cheap. And you know, I paid sort of 300 quid for him and he's absolutely stunning. But, and then those words that I dread, you know, he's newly off the track, or he's had, you know, 6 owners in the past 3 years, or something, and I'm going, whoa, wait a minute, you know, is this horse and rider a good partnership? Because that's really important, that the rider is riding a horse that is suitable for what they want to do on it and for their level of skill and experience. Hugely, hugely important.
Absolutely.
And I very quickly identified with you, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, that you do have the skills and experience necessarily to ride the lovely Jeffrey.
Yes.
And that he is a horse that's suitable and appropriate for what you want to do at this stage in your riding life, which is, if I'm right, have fun.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, I'm hoping that now I've overcome my saddle problems and I've overcome some of my hacking issues as well. So we're going out a lot more, and he's becoming a lot more confident in the arena. And I'm even thinking, I might go out and do a little unaffiliated competition or something, you know, in a month or so, and have a bit of fun with him. But, you know, have the confidence to be able to do it is such a powerful tool. And I think that's one thing that really struck me working with you is how easy it is to kind of get knocked down like that and question your own abilities, and how far that goes to affecting our hobby and, you know, the love of riding. And it's a real shame, isn't it? But I mean, thank God there are people like you around to get us back on track.
Riding is, I really do believe riding's a special case as far as a sport is concerned. Obviously, we've got, you know, our tool is a horse, a living being with its own fight and flight mechanism. But also with riding, you know, often we've got a huge amount of financial commitment tied up in it. We've got a huge amount of emotional attachment in that we love this being, even if it isn't suitable for our riding level, we still adore it and love it. Often riders' social life is entirely mixed up with their horse and their riding, and the time, you know, the huge amount of time and effort at the expense of other areas of their life. So it can be an all-consuming hobby. And it's important that it goes well. Often, you know, it is downtime and me time away from work and family commitments. And it's really important that it's pleasurable and isn't causing a whole load of stress and anxiety and worry.
No, absolutely.
Which it can do. Yeah. Because when it does go wrong, it is... it can be pretty serious. What if you can't ride your horse for whatever reason? What the heck are you going to do with it? And what the heck are you going to do with all that financial commitment and that time commitment and so on?
Yeah.
And then of course, when things aren't going right with riding, it can have effects on, you know, you go home and you take it out on the husband or the kids, or you spend all day at work worrying about the thing that's supposed to be your fun time. So if I can help in some way to help somebody to sort out what's going on with their riding, then inevitably they see benefits in all sorts of areas of their lives, which definitely is lovely.
So I wanted to talk about mindset coaching for competition, because I thought that might be quite a useful aspect for listeners of the podcast. But I just wanted, before we get on to that, I wanted to talk about the progress that I had made. And we used several different tools throughout. I think it was 3 sessions that we had, wasn't it? Was it 4?
I think it was, yes. I should have read your notes again before we did this. They're in the, I haven't got them to hand. But,
That's all right. So we had a series of sessions, and you had some very useful tools, and you had some exercises that I could take on board and do as well. I'm still doing my breathing. In fact, I did it yesterday and it was amazing. Just learning that technique, and it just stops me from panic to focusing on what's going on in my body and then relaxing and calming the situation down. That has been amazing. But what we did was to set a goal. Where is it I want to be? And then work out the steps of how I'm going to get there, which sounds really, really easy, but I needed to work with you to be able to set that up and do it. It wasn't, because my head was so consumed with this problem that I was having, or I thought I was having, I couldn't really work it out for myself. So my end goal is to go hacking alone. Somebody said to me recently, why do you want to do that? And I thought, I don't know. I thought, well, because I've proved to myself that I can do it if I do that, and I can go out and have a lovely time with Jeff, and I don't have to wait for somebody to kind of take me under their wing and babysit me or something. So it's quite a strong goal, and I've worked out those steps. So there were specific people for me to go hacking with, and specific routes on the way back to the yard that I needed to take. And every time I've reached one of those, I've messaged you, haven't I? And said,
you have, yes. Guess what I did. Guess what I did. You've been very kind.
And there was, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Jeffrey, it just didn't feel great in the school. We were schooling, trotting around, and he was just a bit near. And I thought, maybe we'll go and walk around the field or something instead on my own, which is a massive thing for me. And so we popped out of the arena into the field, and I found myself, I'll just have a little canter along the fence line instead. Who am I? This is this is something that I don't do anymore. And we did it several times. We had a bit of a sticky situation where he was a bit overexcited, and I dealt with it.
That's so empowering,
It really is.
Yeah, because you will, as a rider, encounter situations where you have to kind of dig deep and handle it. But the more of those situations that you deal with and you handle, the more your resilience grows, and the more your self-belief that, I'm okay here. I've got this, and I can handle the vast majority of situations which I find myself in. Yeah,
definitely. It really does help to build up that confidence. But I wanted to tell you about my hack yesterday. I was dying to tell you this last night, and I thought, I won't. I'll save it. Oh. So this is a massive deal for me. It may not seem like a massive deal for other people, but coming from where I was, being actually quite frightened, this is huge. So I went hacking with my buddy yesterday. We walked up the hill, which was great because we were trying to build a bit of muscle up. And we came back the field way, which I've only done a couple of times and which would normally quite terrify me. There were pheasants everywhere flipping things. We had a big spook at one point, but we were fine. We were still standing up. I was still on Jeffrey, not a problem. I did trotting. We went trotting in the field, and we didn't break into canter and bolt, which was incredible. We had 2 massive trots in the field along a huge tree line, and Jeffrey was on fire. He was incredible. Just thinking about it, I'm feeling so excited about how it felt yesterday. The trot was enormous. For a little 14-2 pony, it was just giant. It was like riding an 18-hand horse. And he came back with the biggest grin on his face. He was so pleased with himself, and nothing happened. we went to the next level. It was absolutely fine. We made it home. Hooray. Go me.
That is such a great story. Well done. Well done. And obviously, when this goes out, this is a voice podcast. But for those of you who, I can see Ruth's face, and her whole face is lit up with excitement and pleasure of her achievement yesterday. So that's just that, makes me feel warm and fuzzy. That is brilliant. Well done.
Thank you. I've been dying to tell you.
Dealing with stuff and having fun, and you did it. And it was you that did it. It was you and Jeffrey working together that did it. So brilliant. Well done. Thank you.
I shall let you know the next step when it happens.
Yeah. And I think that's, that is the beauty of goal setting, that some people feel that goal setting can be a little bit demotivating because, and I believe that's because they set goals which aren't achievable. And it's great to have a goal, that is far out, say you're rider who enjoys competition, but are kind of going to local shows and so on, and maybe kind of lower level affiliated riding. They might have a goal of qualifying for Horse of the Year show, for example, and that might be something that is quite a long way from where they are now, but it is a dream, and there's no reason why, if they don't break it down from where they are now to Hoys, that they won't be able to achieve that. But if they just totally focus on that outcome of, I want to get to Hoys, which, you have to qualify, which means you have to cope with stuff that is maybe not necessarily within your control. That can be demotivating. So, we bring it back. Yeah, you've got this dream out there in the future, but we bring it back to steps which are closer to where you are now, so that you can achieve them, and you achieve them, and then you give yourself a big pat on the back and you say, yeah, we did that. My goodness, a month ago, I didn't think I would be able to do that. Yeah. Now I'm doing it. Now we can reset.
Yeah.
And at any stage in that process of goal setting, you can plateau for a while.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So you might plateau for a while at, going into the field and having a trot and having an uphill canter. Which, everybody always feels a bit more in control of the cantering uphill and hoping that the horse will run out of steam before they get to the top. And you can plateau at that level of having that kind of fun for a while. And then you sort of know that you're ready to go on to the next level when that gets a bit boring.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've got that. I can do that without, with my eyes closed. Let's, go into the bigger field, or let's do a longer hack, or let's incorporate a few more exciting bits within the hack, or let's, do more solo hacking, or whatever it is, so that you have got, the next stage, and then you get to that stage, and then, another pat on the back. Yeah. Yes, we've done that. Where are we going next?
Yeah.
And riders don't have to keep, going up and up and up and up the levels. Everybody has a level that they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And if they're comfortable at that level, then enjoy it, embrace it. But if they get dissatisfied at that level, then they know that's when to take the next step and start pushing a bit more and developing skills a bit more and so on.
Yes. So talk to me about mindset coaching for competition. I mean, I haven't been to a competition for a long time, but I have ridden a few training tests for dressage anyway in the past, and we've had to restart them a couple of times because, as soon as you realise you're riding this for a judge to look at it and you've got somebody actually filming you and you come down that centre line, that's when things kind of go a bit, what am I doing? And can get a bit crazy. I mean, you probably work with riders, well, you said earlier, you work with riders who compete as well at quite high levels. What top tips have you got for getting those nerves under control?
Yeah, it's the classic, isn't it? People want to be able to reproduce under pressure what they know they can do at home. And we've recently had the Olympics and Paralympics, and I was very excited to hear that in just about every post-performance interview that I listened to, they mentioned mindset in one way or another. It's becoming much, much more accepted and just an everyday thing that athletes, including equestrian athletes, have some form of psychology, mindset coaching to help them to fulfill their goals. The classic is, kind of people get to competition and everything falls apart and, they end up getting eliminated or they're just dissatisfied with their performance or whatever. So again, coming back to everybody's an individual. So very much finding out what strategies they find helpful, what they have done up to now, what hasn't helped, and where their strengths lie, and helping them to really focus on the things that are within their control. So many competitors head off to competition worrying about, will it be judge so-and-so? I know she hates my horse, or what will the weather be like? And, oh no, I hope such and such a competitor isn't there because she always beats me. What if the timings go wrong? What if I forget something? So focusing on all of these sort of things which aren't helping them. And the result of that is that their natural anxiety level starts to increase to levels which they're really very uncomfortable with. One of the things that I think is really important is to help riders to understand that, yes, of course, in a performance situation, their emotions are going to be heightened, and to be able to handle that and to be comfortable with that heightened level of emotion, that heightened level of stress reaction. Because every single rider under performance is under stress. And as human beings, we are designed to be able to handle stress. But when we can't handle it is when we stay at that heightened stress level all the time. So we want to be able to, we go up a level of stress and we accept that, but then we need ways of coming down from that and settling and calming down. So when a rider's in the start box, of course the heart rate's going to be boop, 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 and they're, tense and everything. But then once they head out, then that should settle and calm, and then they're focused on the task in hand. So with a rider who is competing, we would do lots and lots of work on what can you control, things, basic things like making sure that you've got appropriate list of all your gear that you need for yourself, your horse, your transport, where you're going, the tires are pumped up and the tanks full, so that you're not running around like a headless chicken trying to find a petrol station en route to wherever you're going. So you've got everything you need for yourself, you've got everything you need for your horse, you've got everything you need for registration, and you've got your passport with you and everything that you need. And then being very much having a process that you follow on the day. So it might be, I get there, I park, and then I just sit for a couple of minutes and do some of my breathing and so on. And then I go and register. And then, I check that what the timings are doing. And then, I go back and get the horse out and give him a quick once over and tack him up. And having a process for the day. How long do you need for your warm up? How long do you need to tack up? How long do you need to walk the course? And everything that's involved. So all of those things are within your control. And it's almost like you've got a performance bubble. And the nature of a bubble is that it's quite fragile, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you think of a soap bubble, they burst all the time. But if we work on everything is within that bubble, the effect is that bubble gets stronger and is much less likely to burst. And most people can relate to that sort of imagery.
Yes.
of understanding what a bubble is. And that kind of stuff has come, I've kind of known about it, for many years, but last year I did the advanced performance coaching course with Centre 10. And did that under lockdown last year, and so completed that in March this year. And that has very much been focusing on that performance mindset and developing my skills, which hopefully now I'm passing on to the people I work with.
That's amazing.
So focusing on their process on the day, what is within their control. And of course, that goes back a long way. There's no point in waiting till you get there to think, right, I'm supposed to be thinking about my, relaxation, my breathing and my visualization and my preparation, everything. If you leave all that till you get to the showground, then I don't fancy your chances. But if you've worked on that beforehand, so that when you get to the showground, you know what you're going to do, you know how you're going to react if the timings go to pot or, something happens, that's not going to put you off the whole day. So that you're not going to identify your whole day because of, your timings being out by a bit or whatever.
That's really interesting that you're talking about that, because back in the day when I used to compete regularly and go out to shows, I did have an issue with remembering everything that I needed to do beforehand or take with me. And I actually, people mocked me for this at my yard, but it's a really good idea. I developed a spreadsheet which had literally everything that I had to do the morning or the day of the competition. And all I had to do was plug in the time, my dressage time, basically, what time was I meant to be in the arena riding my test, and put in minutes how long it would take me to drive to the venue. And it did everything else for me and would tell me what time I needed to get up in the morning.
That is so impressive. I like that. Yeah, that is very, very impressive.
But it's so true though, because I can be a bit forgetful and a bit of a worrier and a bit of a panicker about these things. It really did help me to get the whole thing under control. So the minute I got out of bed in the morning, at 5 or whatever in the morning, if I had an early time, right to I'm actually hooking up the trailer and about to leave, it was perfect. And I would get there with
and that works for you
to warm up.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so important that we all work out what works for us, and that obviously worked for you. And time and time again you see people's kind of posts saying, oh my God, I turned up at a show, and guess what I forgot to bring with me. And you kind of think, you need to learn from your mistakes. We all will make mistakes. We all will forget something sometime, and that's fine, as long as we don't keep repeating the same mistake. As long as every time we go to a show, we haven't set out in the morning with only, quarter of a tank of fuel when we need a full tank of fuel. If we keep repeating that, then we're not really learning. So, if we do that once and then you waste time having to go and find fuel somewhere, then learn from that so that next time you go to a show, you don't need to think about that because that is sorted. Yes. If we go back to, the Olympic interviews that we listened to and so many of us watched, every single one said, on the day I stuck to my process.
Yeah.
I stuck to my process, and whether they won or they didn't win, or they were placed or they weren't placed, they were satisfied if they had stuck to their process on the day. Yeah. And in other words, they had done the best they could on that day, given, all the situation that they found themselves in.
Yeah.
So they could come away being satisfied. And I think that's really important for riders, that they know they did the best they could in all the circumstances they found themselves in, and they can come home at the end of the day thinking, yeah, I did the best I could. And then if they get a placing, then that's bonus.
Yeah.
But then, people in the Olympics, they were satisfied because they maybe came 6th or 7th, but they got a personal best.
Yeah. And they went to the Olympics, which
absolutely
amazing.
Absolutely, definitely. But if you go to your local show or you go to, a regional or something like that, and you are just outside the placings, but you got a personal best, or you felt that, your connection with your horse on that day was as good as it possibly could have been, then hopefully you come home satisfied and happy and proud of your achievements on that day. If somebody is then, sticking to their process and then monitoring the progress, so that each time they go out to a show or a competition or a training event, whatever, they're making some progress, then they will get closer and closer to that outcome goal of qualifying or being placed or winning something or whatever.
You have helped me so much, Jane. You've been absolutely amazing, and I'm delighted with the progress that myself and Jeffrey have made. It's made a massive difference to our lives, actually.
That's lovely.
He's so happy. He's so happy. He's so chuffed with himself, and now I feel like I get to the yard and he's looking at me saying, "What next? What are we doing next? What's happening?" I'm like, "Oh, we'll just pop in the school for half an hour." I was like, "Yeah, great, love that." "Oh, we're just going to go for a clip clop up the road." "Brilliant, love that." It's made an enormous difference. I can't thank you enough for that. And I'm sure you'll be on hand if I need any top-up sessions as well.
Of course. I'm always here for people who I've worked with, to come back.
Thank you.
Just to clarify something or to get to the next level or whatever. And as you said at the beginning, I am based in Scotland, but
yes.
With the internet, then
anything is possible.
is worldwide, effectively. So that's nice.
So if somebody wants to find out more about you and maybe get in touch, I can't recommend you highly enough. Well, where should they find you? Where's the best place?
I'm on, my website is horseridingwithconfidencescotland.co.uk. I'm on Facebook as Horse Riding with Confidence Scotland, and I'm on Instagram as Confident Riding Scotland.
Brilliant.
So any of those three, and even though I say it myself, I am good at answering messages and emails. I keep a very close eye on them and getting back in touch with people as soon as possible, and then try and make a plan of how we can work together as appropriate. Whatever their needs are.
Brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, Jane. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruth. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
Thanks for listening to the Dressage Anywhere podcast. Dressage Anywhere is an online platform where you can upload your dressage test videos and enter competitions with other riders from around the world. Find out more about us at dressageanywhere.com, Dressage Anywhere on Facebook, Dressage_Anywhere on Instagram, and Dressage_Comp on Twitter.